Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Today we're talking about getting more game in less time in your D&D game. We'll start this video by thanking our sponsor, Easy Roller Dice. Whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for your dice rolling needs. Down in the description, you can find a one-time coupon code for 20% off, as well as the link to easyrollerdice.com/nerdarchy. Go check out some Easy Roller Dice and use that promo code.
All right, so today, with the influx of online gaming and gaming in stores, there's the move away from the marathon session and getting into a more streamlined, fast-paced, few hours and done.
Yeah, I have to concur. I mean, a short session used to be like 3 or 4 hours. And now, like, I regularly am involved in games that are like 2 to 3 hours.
Right, and a lot can be packed into a short amount of time, given that if you look at it from the wider view, it's like, all right, let's leave everything else to the wayside. During this time frame, we're just going to focus on the story. We're just going to focus on gaming, and a lot of that stuff winds up falling off, and you get the same impact in less time.
I don't know if it's the same, but it's different, and it's different for reasons that you might not suspect. I think what really has a large effect on these streamlined sessions, these shorter sessions, especially from us, is combat, right? Like, it's being streamed, and combat isn't really all that interesting to watch. When we're rolling dice to fight. So a lot of the stream stuff, I think, tends to focus more on player and character interaction, and that's the stuff that people kind of gravitate towards and really like. So it's not really uncommon to have a game of D&D that runs for 2 hours, and maybe there's only one combat.
I can definitely see that happening. Having had online sessions that might run 3 hours and it's primarily combat, it doesn't seem as impactful on a greater story, because in 3 hours, how many combats can you really run?
Even in a lot of the games that we do, like, I'll do maybe two combats tops. Very rarely will I go beyond that. Now, that being said, it's not like it's not fun to play, and it's not fun, as the GM to run it. But when you're like, oh, well, there's also people watching, so it's generally not as fun for them. So it's this weird space, right? And it just so happens we're shooting this video and on the day that I had Adam Cobell on the show, and this is one of the topics that actually came up and we're talking about, is that when you're streaming your games, it's entertainment too. So you're always thinking, you're thinking of it as a show, not just the game. So you're trying to coordinate all those different elements into it. But for you guys, if you're just trying to run a shorter game, it might not matter. But obviously, like, if in 2 hours you're only going to get so many combats in, you're probably only going to get two combats in if you want a combat heavy game. And even then, like, I hear people talk about running combats, and like, they're kind of like, well, how did you do that in under an hour? Our combats generally don't last more than 3 or 4 rounds, and I don't feel like they take a huge chunk of time. Like, maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes for a combat tops.
Well, the thing you have to look at is encounter design, and be aware of what is the damage potential of the party, what is the hit points and likelihood of those hit points being lost of the things that you're fighting. So if you want combat to last several rounds, you can plan things to say, okay, well, area effect attacks are going to happen, and that's going to eliminate this chunk of the enemy. It's a given with a lot of different scenarios. If you say, okay, well, now my fighter is going to do X amount of damage, he's going to hit on most of his attacks, especially once you get into the higher levels. Those damages really get up there. So you have a basis, an average of what your party can do. and you come up with this formula so that you can have an interesting dynamic combat that isn't, okay, well, this is just a slog fest over 8 rounds of combat. Okay, he does this to me, I do that to him, and we move on to the next initiative.
Like recently, I put out a counter that I thought was going to be maybe a little bit too challenging for my players. I had a player not show up. So, and we were starting like right when the combat was supposed to start. So I had the player that didn't show up do the one move they were going to do and then just kind of fade out. Which they never really, I guess because things happen so fast. I was going to story something as to what happened to that character, but things happened so fast that the other players kind of ignored it, right? And which is funny because like some of the things you hear are people complaining about continuity of the story. And the truth of the matter is, once you start playing, no one cares, right? So it doesn't really matter. They're most times the players that are at the table are just happy to be playing. So like they were willing to like throw that away really quick, and they were more concerned about the other things that were going on affecting their characters.
Right.
But I put out this encounter, and there was 5 thugs, an imp, a shield guardian, and an archmage, and I'm like, this could go really ugly for these players, I think. But they took it, they handled it, and, it was still, like, I threw the highest level spells this caster had at them. I even messed up a spell and cheated.
No, it wasn't cheating. It was, reinterpretation.
Well, either way, I use time stop, and you get, like, a die 4 plus 1 rounds to do stuff with that spell, but it ends if you cast an offensive spell. Now, that being said, just because we're doing theater of the mind and I tend to favor the players when I do that, I was like, well, the way things are set up, the only way this villain can hit the players is individually without hitting his own minions. So what I did is I was like, all right, well, he's just going to dump a bunch of spells and cast them individually on each player instead of getting them all in an area of effect.
Right.
So that was my compromise. But in doing that, what I failed to recognize was that the first time he would have did that, like the time stop would have ended. But he used time stop. He used the only spell he didn't use was like the wall of invulnerability, and I didn't use it because it wasn't going to be any use to him. So I was like, I might as well just use that spell slot for something else because they weren't really casting spells at him.
Right.
So, but that being said, they had the main fight. He ran back to his lair. They chased him. Fought again. And then, like, it had some traps or whatever. And that was, like, most of the session. And that took, about an hour and 45 minutes. So you can do different things. And I think it was a little bit more exciting because, like, there was, like, an interlude between the combats. Yeah, I almost consider them 2 separate combats.
You got to start and end of the session fighting the same guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that is pretty cool. It is 2 distinct combats because there is a break in the combat. You're not going round to round. You're going and doing other things. They're dealing with the traps and finding the guy. So that definitely made the change. Looking at planning these things, as you said, in the beginning, you have to limit the combats that you're doing, as well as limit the number of rounds that those combats are going to take, especially considering how many people you might have at the table. The more players you have, the less rounds of combat your combats can be if you're trying to do this in 2 hours. Look at some of the older mechanics where you can do minions where it doesn't matter how much damage you're doing, it's going to die once you hit it. Doesn't matter. Like, you can go back to some of those mechanics. You can have monsters flee, run away, what have you, at the end of a round because it's like, well, they're done, they're giving up. And if the players decide, oh, well, we want to make attacks of opportunity, just end it, kill them, do what you need to do, and this will just be done and over with.
The other consideration, too, is party size, right? You can get away with shorter sessions with a smaller party. 2 hours, I recommend 3 to 4 players. the more you go over that, the lengthier the session kind of needs to be, and that's gonna take it out a little bit. But at 4 players, you can have a really good session in 2 to 3 hours easily. Now 5 players, you're definitely gonna have to push it out to 3 hours. So like that's a consideration as well. But if you're going, hey, I want to have a short session, and I want it to be about as long as a movie, you can absolutely do that with 4 players.
So you have to take all of these things, piece it together, and you're going to wind up with, a pretty interesting, pretty dynamic session, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. You just have to make sure that you eliminate the needless combat, eliminate any kind of side chatter, out of game talk, and you need to keep people, or you need to keep the players focused on what's at hand. Not, oh well, let me go do this side thing over here, and I'm gonna run to the market to pick up a sword, and I want to have a role, and I want to have a conversation with the merchant, just to have a conversation. Like, while that can be fun,
I don't know. We still get some of that stuff in our 2 hour sessions. The main thing is there's no side chatter. Like, everything is in game. Even when I play in those games, I even refer to the players as their character names, and very rarely will I even call them out by their player name. So I feel like even with that other stuff, you can definitely run a condensed version of a tabletop role playing game. In this case, Dungeons and Dragons, without stretching it too far. The biggest thing is, though, you show up, you start, and you don't break character. You stay in character the whole time, and you just play the game, or not necessarily in character, but playing the game the whole time. No side chatter, no tangents, no doing other things, and you can get some good D&D in that way.
So, what do you guys think? You have this come up in your games? Do you run this style of game? It's a great place to continue that conversation down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And while you're heading down to the comments, don't forget that description where you can find the link to Easy Roll Dice /Nerdarchy, as well as get the one-time promo code.
So until next time, stay nerdy.